Hello, and welcome to Mobility Now, a show created by the Houston-Galveston Area Council, or HGAC. I'm your host, Alan Clark, HGAC's Director of Transportation. Today, we'll be discussing State Highway 288, also known as the South Freeway. This important highway runs from downtown Houston to the Port of Freeport in southern Brazoria County. Let's get started with a short video on the 288 corridor.
State Highway 288 is a 61-mile highway running north and south between I-45 in downtown Houston and the Port of Freeport in southern Brazoria County. In Harris County, 288 is known as the South Freeway. By the mid-60s, TxDOT had a vision for the South Freeway. Bigger is better. It would be a dual freeway, a regular freeway in the outer side, leaving a wide median for future express lanes. The wide South Freeway would surpass California standards, and it would be one of the most distinctive in the nation. 288 provides direct access to the Texas Medical Center, the largest medical complex in the world. South of the medical center, 288 leads to Pearland in northern Brazoria County. Pearland is the second fastest growing city in Texas. Pearland's ethnically diverse and highly educated labor force commutes daily into the medical center and other employment centers. From the Harris-Brazoria County line to the Port of Freeport, 288 is referred to as the Nolan Ryan Expressway in recognition of the Baseball Hall of Famer who grew up in Alvin, Texas. 288 is also a vital trade corridor. TxDOT has designated SH-288 as the state's 38th most congested corridor and is considering different options to improve mobility in this area. Recently, the Transportation Policy Council approved funding for critical improvements in the 288 corridor, including toll lanes in the median of the existing freeway. For more information on SH-288, visit our website.
My guest today is Kevin Cole, Chairman of the Greater 288 Partnership. Kevin leads an advocacy organization focused on transportation issues along the 288 corridor. Kevin, welcome to Mobility Now.
Thank you, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Kevin, tell us a little bit more about the 288 Partnership, what you do and the area that you're serving.
Well, as you mentioned, we are a unified advocacy organization. We are focused on bringing agencies like cities and counties, along with state agencies like TxDOT, Harris County Toll Road Authority, as well as the public together in a unified fashion to not only plan transportation projects, but see that they get implemented.
And serving your area is the 288 freeway. But I know that that runs through sort of the central part of your region, and it's probably not the limits of the concerns that you have about transportation and mobility issues.
That's correct. We consider the State Highway 288 area as the spine or the center of the region that we try to cover. The rest of the region stretches from downtown Houston all the way to Port Freeport, down 59 to the Sugar Land area, and then down 45 into Galveston County. So in fact, we cover Harris County, portions of Fort Bend County, Galveston County, and all of Brazoria County.
And that part of our HGAC region has been one of the fastest growing areas with lots of population growth and even a lot of employment growth. Tell me a little bit more about the dynamics of this area.
Right. As you know, the City of Pearland, for example, is pretty much in the center of that region, and it ranked the second fastest growing city in the state of Texas during the from 2000 to 2010. So it by itself growing is putting pressure on State Highway 288. Then on the northern regions, you have one of the largest employers in the area, the Texas Medical Center, with 90+ thousand people that call that their employer. The vast majority of those people, or the largest concentration of employees, live in the Pearland area, straight up and down the 288 corridor, putting a lot of pressure and strain on that corridor. Then in further south, you have the petrochemical region as well as Port Freeport, putting pressure on the southern region of Brazoria County.
Well, and all that growth, all that successful economic development has had some adverse consequences for travelers in the 288 corridor. I know that the State Highway 288 corridor is listed among some of the most congested corridors in the state of Texas. And Brazoria County, Harris County, and the Texas Department of Transportation have been discussing solutions for that corridor. Can you tell me a little bit about what the recent recommendations are in terms of increasing the capacity and the mobility along the corridor?
Right, Alan, as you know, 288 has been constructed for many years with 2 lanes in either direction, but with a very wide median. It has always been the plans to come back and be able to add capacity in that median, and for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now, the recommendation has been to toll that center portion. Now, most recently, Harris County and TxDOT have reached an agreement where TxDOT will be going and taking back over the project to construct 2 lanes, kind of a reversible toll lanes, if you will, like an HOV lane. So in the morning, traffic will come out, in the afternoon, traffic will come back out of the Houston core. That's the Harris County portion. Brazoria County portion looks to be mirroring that same type of project, but haven't reached their agreements with TxDOT currently.
And as a result of that economic success, State Highway 288 is now among the state's most congested corridors. And when we come back, more about future plans for the 288 corridor. Don't go away. Welcome back to Mobility Now. My guest, Kevin Cole of the Greater 288 Partnership, and I are discussing State Highway 288, one of the most congested roadways in the state. Kevin, you were just describing the initial investment that might be made to construct 2 reversible toll lanes, as I understood what you were describing. And where would that be built?
Yeah, that's correct. From State Highway 6 in Brazoria County north to Highway 59 right here at downtown. That's where this the first leg of the project would exist. And what's being contemplated right now is 2 reversible lanes that would come in the morning and reverse back in the afternoon to help relieve the congestion. As you might be aware, it's not congested 24 hours a day.
No.
But we have that early, morning commute time and then early or afternoon commute time coming out. So these toll lanes would help relieve that pressure at those 2 times of the day.
And today there is a lot more traffic in the peak direction on 288 than there is in the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's correct. Again, people commuting in the morning, be it downtown or the Texas Medical Center, and then reversing back, people going back home to live in the Brazoria County area.
But I know that there's also congestion on 288 at locations like the Beltway, the 610 loop, and even getting on and off the Beltway as you're trying to get to the Texas Medical Center or downtown. Are there improvements planned at those locations?
Right. Every time you're transitioning from one roadway, be it 288 to the Beltway or 288 to 610, those are also choke points or places where congestion happens because people have to slow down and transition to these other roadways. As I understand it, there will need to be flyovers or direct connectors from 288 to the Beltway, as well as new flyovers or new transition points from 288 to 610. In addition to that, looks like that there will be yet a large flyover on 288 into McGregor, directly linking 288 to the Texas Medical Center. As you're aware, there's a lot of that traffic that's trying to get into the Texas Medical Center. So having that direct connector will help those folks get off the freeway and into where they work.
And actually, just last Friday, we were discussing in our Transportation Policy Council meeting the connections to the Texas Medical Center, and TxDOT told us that they had more than one possible way to leave the 288 managed lanes and get onto the surface streets of the Texas Medical Center. So they're going to be looking not just at McGregor, but at Holcomb and possibly other ways to make that connection. The congestion relief on the 288 corridor is going to save a lot of time and a lot of money. But of course, making those improvements will be expensive as well. How much investment is TxDOT and our counties planning to make in the 288 corridor?
Well, just phase one from Highway 6 to 59, the ultimate build out of that section, which would be 2 lanes in both directions, so 4 lanes, plus the direct connectors and the tie-ins to 59 here at downtown, are estimated by TxDOT to be about $1.8 billion. Now, by going back and doing this 2 lanes reversible saves some money, and being able to piece this over time as well as coming up with the entire investment all at one time.
Well, and $1.8 billion would be a lot of money if it were in my bank account, but I know that we have many corridors with an investment that's significantly greater than that amount. Will most of that cost be paid back from the revenue of people driving on the managed lanes on 288?
Yes, the way it's structured now is it would probably need to be toll viable, so there's additional studies that have yet to be finalized to making sure that the corridor as it's built will be able to repay itself through tolls. For anybody who is worried about additional toll lanes in the 288 corridor, the existing lanes that sit there now will remain free to drive on. As you know, Alan, no roadway is free. Taxpayers still pay for those roadways, but the roads that are there now will stay free to access on.
So in other words, if someone's driving on the current main lanes of 288, that won't be changed in the future. They won't be asked to pay a toll. Only people paying toll be those that choose voluntarily to use the managed lanes.
That's correct. In fact, the ultimate section, or the way this roadway will look, will very much mirror the I-10 corridor on the west side of town.
Right, and on the I-10 corridor, in the center of the freeway, there's 2 lanes in each direction that you can use if you want to pay a toll. And if you don't, you just stay on the main lanes and continue as you have in the past.
That's correct.
Kevin, I know there's other improvements in the 288 corridor in addition to improving the freeway and adding the managed lanes that your organization is supporting. Can you talk a little bit about some of those?
Right. Currently, through h-gac, there's a cooperative to build a park and ride along with Metro in the Pearland area. There will be for their bus service. I think there also should be additional transit opportunities by rail, possibly in the Kirby corridor, as well as rail ultimately in 521 and down 35. All of these different modes of transportations need to be looked at, carefully planned, and then executed to help people move around the region.
And I know our Transportation Policy Council just approved committing funding for some improvements on FM 521, or Alameda as we call it, especially there at the railroad tracks. I guess that's actually in Fort Bend County, isn't it?
That portion of it, yes.
So there will be a widening from 2 to 4 lanes to take out that bottleneck and grade separate 521 over the railroad tracks.
That's correct. And those types of improvements, again, will just help people move quicker, more efficiently, with less congestion or gridlock.
Well, we think a lot about the commuters on 288 because that's when we usually see the peak traffic. But isn't it true there's a lot of goods coming up from the Port of Freeport on this corridor?
That's correct. I think Port Freeport is in the top number 16 port in the United States. As you know, it is the only deep water port. So as the Panama Canal project to deepen and widen the canals there, bringing these mega container ships into the Gulf, Port Freeport stands to gain some business from that because they can currently get those large tankers in and out, which will just put more traffic onto State Highway 288 unless alternatives aren't invested into. All of that traffic will continue to come straight up 288 and through Houston.
And when we come back, more about improvements to State Highway 288. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to Mobility Now. My guest, Kevin Cole of the Greater 288 Partnership, and I are discussing major mobility improvements planned for the 288 corridor. Kevin, let's talk a little bit about some of the other important features of the 288 corridor. 3 things I can think of. 1, it is an evacuation route for much of southern Brazoria County should we have a hurricane or an event like that. Secondly, we were talking some about goods movement coming up from the growing Port of Freeport, but also I have heard a lot about plans to expand the major manufacturing facilities in southern Brazoria County. And third, just every day I hear about traffic crashes and concerns about public safety in this corridor. Can you talk a little bit about how these improvements that we were discussing could facilitate relief for some of those issues?
Right, and evacuation, clearly, the number one issue facing those along the coast is in the event we have another Ike, how do we get out safely? So 288 is an evacuation route. State Highway 36 is an evacuation route. State Highway 36 I see as a component of the 288 corridor and the 288 improvements because not only can it handle evacuation, but it can handle goods movement, freight movement coming up and out of the port. It is a highway that can come directly out of Port Freeport, around Houston, all the way to I-10, through Fort Bend County, through Highway 59, all the way to I-10. So it can actually move those goods out of the port without coming through Houston. And you also mentioned
the safety and crash experience on 288.
So naturally, as you have more cars in a corridor, the more opportunity there is for accidents. You start adding trucks to that, the numbers go up even higher and faster. So if we can somehow mix freight without mixing freight and cars, but bring freight a different way, that's going to help reduce traffic, or not only traffic, but safety and accidents in the future. And then you mentioned the petrochemical base in southern Brazoria County, along with the Port Freeport. You have Dow, BASF, the LNG plant, very concentrated area for the petrochemical industry. It is a growing industry, more jobs, more plant jobs, more construction jobs. Not only are there now, but are coming. Lots of investment has been announced into that area over the next coming years.
How many billions of dollars would you guess?
I've heard as much as $4 billion.
Wow, $4 billion.
In capital improvement. So the number of construction jobs on the front end of that are large. And as you know, those types of things have spin-off industries and spin-off workers as well. all putting pressure on the lower end of the greater 288 area.
And of course, those plants will themselves be manufacturing goods that need to be transported, at least in part,
Right.
over the highway network.
Right. So not only goods coming out of the port, but also construction goods coming down into that area to construct these plants.
And it was interesting that what you said about the State Highway 36 corridor. It does, in a way, travel north-south, parallel to 288. It's probably less well known to a lot of residents who commute in every day to the Texas Medical Center or downtown Houston.
Right.
But as you say, could provide an important linkage, particularly for goods coming out of the Port of Freeport.
Right. Well, currently, Port Freeport will tell you they have, on average, somewhere around 700 to 800 trucks a day coming out of the port with goods. As the Panama Canal project finishes and more tankers are coming into Port Freeport, that number could grow to as high as 5,000 trucks a day.
Wow.
So when I talk to people on the northern end of Brazoria County about the importance of 36, and I mentioned that fact, that where are these trucks going to go? If they don't go on Highway 36, they're going to stay on 288, so that's more truck traffic coming through Houston. Without a doubt, everyone says, we've got to do everything we can to help 36 then. Because that traffic, people on the northern end don't want the trucks coming through, they want it to go around.
So the 288 partnership is going to be advocating for improvements in the 36 corridor soon, I assume.
Yes, as you know, there's been several projects with some bridges, overpasses, those types of things that are already underway with TxDOT and Brazoria County. But that corridor should be designated, I think, as a freight corridor, so people will understand and know how that's going to be planned and what it will look like in the future. You certainly don't want housing development necessarily right up on the corridor, knowing that it's going to be freight. So let's plan that corridor as it's basically a blank canvas today, much like a lot of 288. A lot of the 288 corridor is very blank canvas, so we can plan the area, unlike a lot of the other corridors around the Houston area that are already built out. 288's not. So we have that opportunity to plan both of these corridors well into the future.
And the State Highway 36 corridor in some ways may be a better evacuation route than 288, since those persons going straight north still have to contend with
Right.
congestion in the middle of downtown Houston and other parts of the developed area. And 36 would let you go to the west or to the north quite easily
Right.
from that west side connection. I also think there are communities along the State Highway 36 corridor that are probably quite concerned about seeing a large increase of truck traffic without seeing that traffic on a safe, reliable facility like a freeway type corridor.
Yeah, again, that corridor should be planned. We need to take the local communities into account. How is that going to interface with their local traffic? Are there opportunities to go around with bypassing and those types of things? But as we continue to grow, as the port continues to grow, it's inevitable that we'll have more truck traffic and more vehicular traffic in these two corridors.
And I know that there's also improvements planned for State Highway 35. Not a lot of activity there today, but parts of 35 will be affected by State Highway 99, what we call the Grand Parkway.
Right.
And we've looked at corridors, the northern part, that might be parallel to 35 as a separate tolled facility. Is your organization advocating any of those improvements?
Yes, that's another project that we very much want to stand up and advocate in favor of. It links from City of Houston out Spur 5 along Makawa down to Alvin, and then ultimately all the way to Angleton as Highway 35 goes. It's a parallel corridor to 288. There are many people who would travel that corridor who come over to 288. So we see the two working together to relieve traffic. Alan, as you know, the greater Houston area is going to grow by some 4 million people over the next 25, 30 years as estimates are floating around. A lot of those folks will live south because of the proximity to Houston, the proximity to these job centers. we're going to add people. And so somehow, some way, we've got to figure out how to get these people to move around the city effectively. So these corridors all need to be looked at and ultimately built.
That's all we have time for today. I'd like to thank my guest, Kevin Cole, Chairman of the Greater 288 Partnership, for joining us. I'm Alan Clark, HGAC's Director of Transportation. Thanks for watching Mobility Now.